went out. It was summer, so more birds, but one morning we went out for 2 hours. There were 2 teams, 2 different vehicles, but you had to get a photograph of the bird that you identified, which makes it even more difficult. But in one morning, in this area, just south of here, we managed to get, between the 2 teams, over 100 species of birds in 2 hours. Can you believe that? So it was, I think it was about 108 that we managed to get. Which was very, very interesting to see how many birds we could get in such a short time. Now, it sounds like someone's decided to go and visit the headmaster at the tent.
Oh, Byron, if I'm the headmaster, then you're the naughty student, and we shall definitely issue out some discipline later when you get back. Now, we did have Nyala that visited us, a beautiful big bull, and he got my attention because he was scraping on bushes and headbutting a tree, but he's now moved off a little bit, which is not ideal. But maybe, come Craig, it's stopped raining, let's go and investigate and see where he's gone. Maybe we'll be able to do an encounter and a close approach as we stalk our Nyala. Now, I'm not sure if this Nyala has been named. I know he's made a few appearances around the tent. It's one of the big bulls that we see, but unfortunately he's disappearing into the thicket. I'm not sure if he's got a name yet. We'll have to ask Kirst what she thinks. Maybe Nigel or Neville the Nyala, and he'll hang around here. It's not the first time I have seen him in this here. Nigel is a skeleton. No, let's not name him Nigel. That might be offensive. Neville? Neville, what do you think, Kirst? Neville? I think Neville's alright. Now, unfortunately, it is very dreary out there and not very pleasant, so let's come back to the safety of our tent, and we shall then carry on with our male leopards. Now, I know that some of you have been asking a lot about the male leopards. I'm going to start from the far east and then move our way westwards. I actually did forget one female on this, which we'll add as we get there. Okay, so let's start with our male leopards. Now, for those of you that are older viewers, you might remember Nduna and Mishu, so I'm going to start with them. Those were 2 boys that Karula gave birth to. Now, both of them are lying somewhere in this area, and we get random updates of them every now and then. And Mishu, they in the Kruger around that area. So I'm not sure how big their territories expand, but they're around sort of the Buffelshoek, Manyeleti, Kruger, that kind of section there. Now, recently, Shivambalan, who used to be dominant around in Koro Cheetah Plains, has been evicted by quarantine, and so he's ended up being in this area. And now, bear in mind, these are all Karula's cubs at the moment, so this is all Karula's lineage. Now, here in this area, which at the moment his territory is kind of doing this. I know he was seen in Buffelshoek the other day, so that's kind of the territory of Mr. Q, or quarantine. So he's evicted all of those there. Right, so we have him. Now, he's just making his way as a young male, but he's got a big problem on his hand because he is surrounded by 2 big boys. Now, the first one is the one that lies to the north, and it is the male that we see all in this area like this, and that is the elusive Djuma. So he's over there. So quarantine unfortunately can't expand much further north because Djuma is there. Then to the sort of south and west of those 2, now I'm running out of colors here, it's all getting a bit complicated. You can see we've got quite a few leopards, not that we're seeing them today, but there are quite a number of them. Then to the west of this, which is probably one of the biggest territories because his territory does this. It goes like this, all the way along into Simbambili, onto this, basically this cut line, here into Shirley's, and then Hoffman's, Vessels, Annette's, Cheetah Plains, back up into Nkoro and Torchwood. And that all is Mr. T. Tingana. Or as Jamie calls him, Tingata, but which we all have been laughing about quite a bit lately. So you can see Tingana still has a massive territory, and that is why he walks around so much. We often talk about the fact that he moves and he's follow these tracks and he ends up going big distances, and we see him on the dam cams at night, and by the morning he's out of our traverse area, and that is why you can see that is huge area to get around and to mark and to make sure other males are not in there. So Reese from Scotland, you've brought up the next male that I was going to do. Now I'm running out of colours. I actually needed more colours for this, but you want to know about Mvula and how big his territory was prior to him becoming this nomadic old male. Well, Mvula had a very similar territory to Tingana. In fact, it almost is the same as what Tingana's is now. He didn't stretch quite as far into Arathusa and Simambili as what Tingana does, but he definitely had pretty much this entire area. So what colour are we? Black now. That's fine. We can do black. This was all Mvula. So he used to go all the way around like this into Mala Mala towards the Sand River and round. That was pretty much Mvula territory. Now lately obviously he doesn't do that, he just kind of patrols in around here, but that used to be his territory, and I used to watch him some days. We used to find him right on the southern boundary with Mala Mala in the morning game drive, and we'd leave him there sleeping at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by the time 3:30 rolled round, we would be finding him on the Buffelshoek Manuleti cut line. So he used to just march all this way, much like what Tingana does, and the reason for that is because these male leopards, when they have territories like this, as you can see with the number of other males around, they have to constantly patrol and make sure that their area is not being sort of utilized by other males. So that's where Mvula was. Now unfortunately for him, he's become a retired old male, and so he's not going to be patrolling anywhere near the size that he is now. I have to add one more from our eastern section because we haven't put him in yet, and that is Kunyuma. He's also known as the Senegal bushmale now, apparently. Who knows why he's been called the Senegal bushmale, but that's apparently his new name. And his territory, as far as I can work out now, the last time I actually saw him was over there, which was I think beginning of last year. I must just check my notes on that, but he was there and he actually chased Mvula, which was quite amazing to watch. But generally his territory, from what I can work out, is all of this area now to the south down towards the Sand River. He's kind of patrolling around this area, so that's all Kunyuma. So some of you may remember him also from Karula. So you can see her males tend to shift all to the east, and the reason why they all go east is because of the biggest of the big, who is in the western sector, who I haven't drawn just yet. And I know somebody was asking me about Anderson. I need to just find out who exactly it was. I think it was Stefan. So Stefan, you wanted to know about Anderson and where his territory lies. Well, Stefan, we actually don't know the extent of his territory because Ottawa here is not a commercial area, so there's very few vehicles that roam around there. In fact, there's only 2 vehicles that can go onto that property in any one game drive, and they are from Singita, so we don't really know too much about where Anderson's territory goes inside here. We know it goes in there, we just don't know how far. He then goes all the way down onto the Sand River, which is this bottom section here of Martley, and so Anderson's territory currently is basically comes around like this, and then he follows a line through the middle of Arathusa, past Arathusa camp, all the way up onto the northern fence line, into Pickaninny, Utah, Ottawa, all the way around like that. And that is all Anderson. So he is all over the place at the moment, and he originally stems from Mala Mala, so he pushed west, and that was probably because of the likes of Mvula when he was a little bit younger, and he's now taken over this whole territory. And so all these dispersal males that we're seeing coming from Karula and varying others have had to push further east because this western sector between Tingana and Anderson has been dominated completely. There's no other animals that can compete with them. Both of them are really big boys. Now Kirst, I'm sorry, I did forget the name of Hamilton, Canada. You want to know who's bigger between the two of these leopards? Well, I've seen them walking side by side in a territorial dispute, which was on Arathusa, and Anderson is a lot more bulky than he is, than Tingana, but he's not really that much taller. So we talk about Anderson being really big. He only stands slightly taller than Tingana. He's probably only about that much taller, but the size of the chest and the width of the chest is massive in comparison. Anderson is almost built like a lioness. He's got these really big shoulders, massive head, and the thing about Anderson which gets to me is that he's still fairly young in terms of male leopards. I think now Anderson must be only about 7 years old, so he hasn't even developed that dewlap properly. He's still going to get a much bigger dewlap, and he's going to be really amazing when he gets a little bit older, and he's going to be a very scary leopard. I've walked into Anderson a few times on foot, and I can tell you those eyes cut right through you, and he's not an animal that you really want to sort of mess with too much. And then again, like I say, he's just got this aura about him because of his size. It's amazing to see him sort of walking down the road. Everything almost looks twice at him, because I don't think anybody can believe that he is actually a leopard. So he's quite an incredible individual, and he's hoisted some of the most incredible kills that I've seen. I've seen photos of him hoisting young giraffe. We've seen him with aardvarks, big male warthogs. I've spoken about that story a few times where he caught a warthog and then fought with hyenas and stole it back again once they tried to take it from him. So he is very muscular and is really probably the most dominant of the leopards in this particular section. So that is a general outlay of the leopards that we see in this area. Well, most of them, there's one or two that I have left out, but those are the more common ones that we see, and hopefully in time maybe Anderson's going to do exactly what Tingana did and shift, because Tingana's territory used to lie all over here on Elephant Plains, and Simambili, exactly where Anderson is now, is where Tingana came from. We used to see him coming in this area and down, and now he's been shifted, and so maybe Anderson, the same thing's going to happen, and we're going to end up seeing him more and more on Djuma, which would be really, really special if we did. Now, I believe Jamie is still out in the rainy, pouring weather looking for leopards, and I really hope she has some luck, because she's had a torrid few days when it comes to finding some of the spotted cats.
Thanks for the gentle reminder, Tristan. Yes, I have had some horrid luck with finding the spotted cats. I heard somebody mention Tingata. Maybe we'll bump into Tingata at some point. My luck has got even worse. I was just about to take you into Tumba, and there was mass debate on the radio, because sometimes we're not exactly certain where the boundaries of each property are. So I'm on my way in, cheerfully, happily, off we go, thinking, oh, we can sit nice and tight in the rain, which I actually think we need to put both flaps down now, and it's off our property. It is on Little Gowrie. He's just on Little Gowrie. So, you know, aren't I lucky? Look at the rain, everybody. You continue to look at the rain. I'm going to just hop off quickly and close this one side flap. I think we're going to need to do that. It is pouring. Well, at least I got that right. Lady Starfire, when does the dry season begin? About a month ago, give or take. Can't you tell? It is, in fact, the beginning of our dry season. The impala rat starts at the end of the wet season. My only conclusion is that we're going to have to blame the boys from Biome, who are here to do some extra filming for the VR, the 360 rig that they have. And the last time they were here, they brought rain, and they've brought rain again. I can only assume they brought the English weather. What on earth? It's the home of the stink bug. Oh, yay! Yay! Just to add to our predicaments this afternoon. How charming. Here we go. So our stink bugs have been living in the roof. Oh, I'll be with you in a second. Quite. It's slippery. Battening down the hatches. Hi everybody. How's it, Shanae? I know. Not really. It redirects it all into the car. Right, let me just move out of the way for poor Shanae. I mean, not that it matters much. It's not like she's going to get any drier. Oh, let me move out of her way. Oh. She's jealous of our roof, everybody. Right. So while we fight off this invasion of stink bugs and try and wrap ourselves up nice and tight and dry, let's head over back to Tristan, I think.
Well, Jamie seems to be having a wonderful time out on safari the last few days. It's been spectacular for her. She's had it all. She's had sightings. She's had no insects, no rain. It's really been an easy time for her to deal with, and luckily for Jamie, the rest of us have been suffering with sightings all over the place. So unfortunately for her, it's the way it goes. No, I'm just joking, Jamie, don't worry. Luck will change. When the sun comes out and you're on leave, then things will get better and we will start to find more animals. Maybe. Who knows? Right. So, our little spider escaped. I tried to get it to show us its spinnerets, but there was no chance. It was very feisty, and I actually wanted to show you why it was called a crab spider as well, which I forgot completely earlier. But the reason is basically when the spider sits at rest, it has its legs out almost like this, like the pincers of a crab would be, and it sits very much like that with the body raised slightly. And we saw when we saw the eyes, that the eyes were slightly up and the body was almost at this 45-degree angle, much like a crab would sit, and that's where it gets its name from. So I did forget, but what I have found is its sort of web, and what is inside its web is quite interesting. There's a number of different little things inside there, so you can see there's almost all little bits of insect in there. There is also a very orange spongy material. Now I think that that could potentially be the egg case for this little crab spider, so I am going to put it back where we found it, and you can see there's also a feather in there. Now I'm not sure why there's a feather in there and what feather that would belong to, because it is minute. This is about the same size as what the spider was, which we showed you earlier, was very, very small, and I'll show you again what it looks like just now. But where that is come from, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's one of the down feathers from the owl that James dissected a few months ago, and it's built it into there. And then there's varying little bits of wings and casings for animals inside there, so quite a complicated web, and not one that the spider will be able to go into too easily. So and that's why I think it's more sort of protection for the egg case than anything else. Now what I wanted to do is actually show you just how big this egg case is, so I'm going to get it out for you, and there we go. That is the size of what we were looking at, so you can see very, very small. So all of that detail inside there, and that little feather is minute. So I'm still going to try and work out what kind of feather that is. I'm sorry, Craig, if I'm shaking too much. There is also a howling wind blowing through here currently. The storm seems to be rolling in, and it really is getting very miserable outside there, so I don't envy Byron and Jamie at all. But the only consolation is that it's not very pleasant in the tent too. It's very, very cold in here currently. It's not nice. This wind kind of filters in and everything gets very, very sort of damp and wet. But it is better than being in the rain, I will say that. This morning was quite something being out there. Now I'm going to try and see what else I can find. Like I say, we've been limited slightly in our movements in the tent because of the rain that we've had. It really isn't easy, so I want to just see. So, Boys638, you're asking, does the rain mean less animals to spot? Well, no, not necessarily. So, it becomes harder to find them. We rely heavily on using tracks to be able to find our animals. So, we'll look for footprints and then track them from there. And that means that it's very difficult in the rain because the tracks get washed away quite quickly. The ground also becomes compacted with water. And so, a lot of the places, if it's not very soft soil, it actually becomes harder and more crusty when the sun comes out, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. So, that also, animals don't really like the rain. As we know with cats and dogs, when it rains they generally don't sit in the rain. They try and find some sort of shelter, so they go into thicker, denser areas, which makes it a little bit harder. And then the other animals like the elephants and the buffalo and zebras and giraffe, and these animals, they don't go to water nearly as much as they normally would, so you don't find them at the water holes. So going to a water hole on a hot afternoon is often a good place to find activity, whereas now in this weather we're not going to find that as animals try and shelter. You can see it is very miserable out here. It's kind of gotten very, very, very heavy with the rain, and even old Neville the Nyala has now moved off. He's gone into a thicket, and that's probably where he was going to. He might have been perceptive enough to know that the rain was coming. And so yes, rain is tough, but on the flip side of that, we have mornings like we did this morning where it was raining the whole morning while we had all these fantastic sightings. We saw leopard, we saw wild dogs, we had lion, we had elephant. So it really was a great morning, and it did rain the whole morning. So sometimes you strike it lucky, and if you manage to find things on the roads, it then helps quite a bit. And the nice thing is with roads when it is wet is that the animals like to use it, because ultimately it's much easier to walk through that than in these soggy grass areas where there's wet grass hitting you in the face, making your coat all wet and damp. Much easier to walk out on the road where it's a little bit easier. So well, Kirsty says that we can go across to soggy Byron. Now that doesn't sound very good at all, and I hope Byron is not that soggy, because otherwise his biceps might deflate and it will all not go very well for him when he goes back to Joburg and looks for some girls.
What are you on about, Tristan? I'm just getting soaked. That's all that we are getting. Senzo is quite comfortable in his little tent at the back here, I suppose, but all the rain's coming in from the front. But just have a look out here, everyone. Looks like it's settled in now. I don't know what's going to happen. This is not good for us. There's a hippo in here somewhere. Let's see if the hippo's around. Hopefully it sticks its head up for us. And you saw it earlier with Jamie, apparently. Well, I don't think I copied that question correctly. Kirsten, please give it to me again. Okay. Sorry, Leah. Sorry, I didn't hear your question originally. I thought you asked if the rain affects the animals' negativity. I thought they were going to be very upset because of the rain. No, so you asked if it affects them negatively. Well, not necessarily in winter, the winter rainfall. So no, Leah. All that it would do is possibly allow maybe a bit of regrowth now to happen. You might get some shoots coming through, and all that would do is allow the food to basically grow a little bit through the winter. So there's still a lot of food right up to the end of winter, the very dry months of July, August, September, even October. So when it does get very dry, then there should still be enough food from these bits of rain that we had. So it won't affect them negatively at all. If anything, it'll be good for the animals. I thought we're going to have to set up little meetings for the animals to work on their morale because of the rain negativity. It's amazing the things we think we hear. I do apologize. There's that hippo. Kirsten asked, do I think the animals feel negativity towards the rain? I don't think they do. I think I do when I'm on drive. I love the rain. I really, really love the rain. But when you on drive, it's just not very pleasant because the water gets in everywhere. You get a bit cold. And what else? Animals tend to hide away from you. So, and this is definitely settled in now. Oof. So Adele in the UK, the hippos don't actually float. You asked how do the hippos float? Well, they don't. So Adele, that hippo is actually resting on the bottom of the water hole. So what they do is they stand, or if the water is shallow enough, they will actually lie down. So their bodies are able to submerge, but they can just keep their heads above the water. So I think that hippo, I don't think this dam is that deep. It's just either standing or resting, lying down. But they don't float on the waters, on the top of the water to keep their heads up like that. The hippos, technically, Adele, they cannot swim. So the hippos are in the water, but they run from the bottom of the water holes from one side to the other, or on the river beds. They'll run across a river to get from one side to the other, or to the shallow water, but they do kick up and try and get themselves up to take a breath of air if they've got a long distance to travel underwater. But they don't actually swim. You might see them kicking and doing this to get up to the surface, but it's not swimming at all. It's just natural instinct to try and kick, but they can't really swim. So they will just lie on the bottom of the waterhole or on the riverbed, and they'll run from one side to the other if they do need to move around underwater. It's interesting because they can hold their breaths for quite some time, anywhere from between 7 and 9 minutes. I think it's 7 or 8 minutes. I think that's the longest a hippo can hold its breath. I've read some other statements from people, kind of a book there where they reckon they can hold their breath for longer. Let's see if we get a yawn. Come on. There we go. Yes, that's what we wanted. Look at that. Lovely. Well, a little bit of a display for us. Hippo's obviously enjoying the rain. So as I was saying, actually, what was I saying now? I've lost my thought. Some people reckon that the hippo can hold their breath for longer periods of time, but I don't think so at all. It's actually a short period of time. Well, not short, 7 or 8 minutes. I don't think it's longer than that, from what I have read. But on average, it's about 2 to 3 minutes if they do go under. That's an average time if they choose to. This rain on the roof is a lovely sound. Very light rain now, but it is still. Leo, I've never heard of a hippo drowning. I don't think so. I'm trying to think. Maybe in floods. I wonder. Maybe in floods. But you know, Leo, they're such powerful animals. They can move through a body of water very, very easily. So I think even when the floods come down, the hippo tend to go and look for pools that they can shelter themselves in. But I've never heard of a hippo drowning. Oh, that one's opening his mouth and closing his nostrils, you see? JC Trolls, I'm not sure if the hippo come out of the water more during the rain. It's a possibility. However, I think it's more just a case of them coming out of the water in the evenings to feed. That's generally when hippo come out. It's unlikely for them to come out during the day purely because it's raining. I don't think so. But and I think from what I've seen, when it is raining, the hippo tend to stay. Look at that. Oh, that's a nice yawn. Lovely displaying that he's doing for us now. And that call, that's great. So from what I've seen, hippo tend to stay in the water when it's raining. They don't normally stand outside. Probably just feel safer in the water if it is raining. And I say safer because the rain can cause some of the animals to not necessarily hear very well, because there might be, if there are predators around, it also masks the scent of the predators. So animals do try to stay closer together or in safer areas if it is raining, because it does provide a good scenario for animals to hunt in, predators to hunt in. When it's raining, it's loud, masks their scent. Good conditions. I wouldn't be surprised if some predators, especially during the course of the evening, start hunting. So we shall see. Not sure. Now, what can we do? Has it stopped a little bit? It has. Shall we try and continue and see what else we can find? It's just so difficult to drive around when it is raining. You know what I'm going to do? And I hope no one's... Senzo, can you see if anyone's behind me? Noel, a crocodile can definitely stand underwater long. How long? No, I can't actually see anything. Hold on, before I drive us off an edge here somewhere. Length of a crocodile is, I think it's something like... I don't want to make up stories, but I'm sure I read 5 minutes to almost an hour. I think... terrible. This is very frustrating because these flaps just flap everywhere, so I can't drive. So now I'm going to try settle these flaps and see what plan I can make with them. But like I said, I think crocodile 45 minutes or an hour. I think I remember reading that somewhere. Anyway, let's head to Jamie and see how she's coping with all this rain.
Well, at this point, we might have to start competing with the hippos and the crocodiles just to see which of us can actually stay underwater for the longest. That's how it feels, anyway. At least the rain has let up a little bit, but I find myself in the same predicament as Byron, in that I'm flapping like a sort of giant bat car thing. And my conclusion as to our plan for this safari is to go and search for one very soggy lion. We had him this morning. We had him Mfumo just off the road over here. I'm hoping that he's going to still be around. However, the Nkuhumas are on Simbambili, and they apparently have got a kill with them. So it could be that he's decided to go in that direction. Mr. P, you want to know how the situation is with the naughty bugs. Well, Mr. P, some of them have been dislodged into the road due to the flapping of the flap. Some of them are still on the flap, and probably most of them have landed up into the interior of the vehicle with us. Sorry, what was that, Kirst? There were some bugs there. Most of the rest of them are with me, somewhere in here. I'll let you know. We shall be surrounded by the gentle smell of stink bugs in a moment. Oh well. Shame. I almost felt a little bit guilty. Imagine their surprise. They had that nice, safe, warm, dry spot all rolled up in the cover, and then all of a sudden they were unceremoniously dislodged and left flapping in the wind. Oh, look at the clear skies up ahead. Come this way. Indiana Jones. Yes, the big cats. No, let's rephrase that. Indiana Jones would like to know whether or not the big cats dislike the rain as much as their house cat does. I didn't actually realize that Indiana Jones had a house cat. They're not as... Obviously, there's no way for them to really go. They can't go inside. They get used to it. I don't think they particularly enjoy just sitting underneath a bush. They usually try and find themselves a tucked away spot that's slightly more sheltered. But it's great hunting weather for them. So there's that as well. The fact that a night like this evening's going to be dark, windy, rainy, it's going to be hugely beneficial in terms of their hunting abilities. So in that sense, they actually probably really like the rain. It helps them out considerably. Have I gone into autopilot and gone past the driveway? No, I haven't. Oh, this road. This rain doesn't help. Rumble bumps and corrugations on the road. As we flap our way in a rather unsecured tent-like structure, I'm sure Tristan must be enjoying the comfort cozy tent.
Well, I am, except when the wind blows, because the wind is rather disconcertingly cold, actually, so I can't imagine how cold Jamie and Byron must be now that they are wet. This morning at one point I was sitting with Tandy and Tumba, and it was freezing, and it was wet and damp, and the wind blows, and you just feel the sort of cold cutting through you. It's not very pleasant, so I do feel for them, and the tent is very dry, so I'm grateful for that. Now, I know Byron was talking about crocodiles, and he was wondering about how long they can stay underwater. Well, it depends on the crocodile, but if a crocodile is pressed and it really has to stay underwater for either a safety point of view or it is hunting, like we might see in Kenya and in the Mara, hopefully we'll see some of that action, you'll find that a crocodile can stay underwater for up to 2 hours. Now, the reason why it can do that is twofold. The first is that it slows its heartbeat down to 2 beats per minute. Now, I mean, 2 beats per minute is almost not even alive, and so it's blood flow and movement of the oxygen is that much slower, and therefore they don't utilize it as much. And the second reason is that they have a whole bunch of blood vessels in their body, and they're able to actually restrict those blood vessels towards the feet and the tail in areas where they are not actually moving. So the feet and the legs and the tail, when they are sitting on the bottom, are not moving at all, and there's no point in sending massive amounts of oxygen to those muscles when they are not in use. So it's a restricted amount of blood that goes in there, and therefore less oxygen is moved around the body, and that is why they can stay underwater for so much longer. It really is an amazing thing with crocodiles. It's something that is unbelievable to me. Imagine sitting underwater for 2 hours, and you can see why they're so successful at hunting predators. Hunting animals that come to drink. Some animal comes down and they spot that animal from a distance away. They go underwater and they wait, and then this animal comes to drink, and it has no idea that that crocodile has been sitting there for an hour in that same position, and they're able then to explode out and grab them. And it's an incredible design that they have. Now, what I wanted to show you is something else on the microscope. But first, before we get into the microscope, I am very sorry, Byron. I know Byron found this dung beetle yesterday, so he had a dung beetle. I have dismembered your dung beetle. I am very sorry, Byron. And the reason why I dismembered it is because you said yesterday that it was hollow inside, and so I wanted to see what was actually inside of it. So I basically decapitated it just to check if there was anything, and all there is a dark hole of an exoskeleton and nothing else inside there. But there was quite a putrid smell that came out when I broke the head off. It wasn't very nice at all, but inside there is nothing. And I wanted to check if there was any sort of aphids or potentially assassin or mites that could have been inside, and that's what's gotten in to feed off this dung beetle, and why it was then empty inside. But alas, there was nothing. Now, I want to take a look at its head just now, but what I have done is dismembered its leg. So I've taken a leg off and popped it under the microscope, and I wanted to show you why I've done that. So if we go to the microscope itself, you can see there what you've got is almost two sort of separate entities to the leg. We've got a big broad base to it that almost look like paddles, and the reason why they've got those is twofold. One is it helps them to shift soil when they are digging to bury their dung ball, and the other reason is to be able to actually paddle the dung and pack the dung onto their ball and shape the ball as much as possible so that it is in a sort of compacted way that they can then roll it around. So that is the flattened part. Then you've got the sort of bottom edge to this little leg, which I'm going to point out to you. Now I've got to just get my bearings under the microscope, so I'm going to try and put the tweezers close to where I'm talking about. Now you can see the shadow of the tweezers because I'm missing everything, but this part, oh no, sorry guys, I've pushed it, but where the tweezer is now resting, there's that spiky sort of haired part to the leg, and that part of the leg is for if this dung beetle lands in water, then those hairs help to spread the surface area of the leg and allow them then to stay on the surface tension and not drown in water. So that's that. And then you can see they've got a little sort of claw at the edge. Now I'm trying to find something that I can point this out to you, that I'm not going to be as clumsy as my... There we go. So those little claws towards the end there of where the hairy part of the leg is. So those are there just to help grip little branches and varying other twigs and leaves and grasses that they need to get over to negotiate. But isn't that amazing that there's sort of two separate structures that allow two different things when it comes to these dung beetles? And I've actually never really looked at them very closely, because often with a dung beetle is it's moving around and walking, and we don't get enough time to spend with them and actually put them under a microscope like we've done now to see those paddle feet and see how they actually work, which is really amazing. So it's very cool to play under the microscope. I feel like a professor inside here. I know Byron called me a headmaster earlier, but maybe that's exactly what it is. Being inside the tent is like a headmaster. I know James becomes very headmasterish inside here as well. Now, I believe Jamie has broken the drought and barrenness of the afternoon when it comes to cats, and has managed to find something that is large with a mane and very sharp teeth.
You. I don't know who D2 is today. Yeah, just tell her I've got nothing.
Alright, well, not to worry, Jamie, we've got some elephant. Sorry that you lost your signal there, but just found another herd of elephant, moving through the wet elephant moving through the area. There seem to be a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can kind of count, spread around at the moment. It's difficult to see the others. I can just hear them because of the flaps on the vehicle. But there's one. I wonder if you can see this one right next to us. Can you see it, Senzo? Or is it just out of frame, this one over here? You can't see it. See if you can go a bit closer. It looks like that one is quite big. So I don't think they like our roof very much, these elephant. Well, while I go closer, Jamie's got her comms back. Let's see what she's up to. Oops.
I have to say, I'm seriously surprised that we've managed to get as lucky as we have. Obviously, we do apologise for the minor technical glitch earlier, where I could not hear Kirsty at all. But the reason I'm surprised is to find this male lion exactly where we left him this morning. I was not expecting that. I thought in this rain, I thought he would probably have gone strolling a little bit further, because it seemed like that was what he wanted to do this morning. He was still on the move, he was up and down, he didn't look entirely 100% settled. And then I saw that a tree had been dragged out of the road where it had been pushed over, and I thought, oh no, he must be gone. But he's not. Here he is. And that's perfect. And he duck out of your way. We've had new viewers ask why we duck every time we see an animal. It's just to get our back of our heads out of your way so that you have a good view. The good news is, in this sort of weather, I think he's going to start getting up relatively soon. Once you start to see the paw lickings, or the paw licking, oh shame, rubbing his eye again. But if he starts to yawn a few times, then there's a very, very good chance he's going to get up. And he's far more likely to be more active in this sort of weather. And because he knows that his scent marks will have been washed away, where he's sprayed urine and where his coalition mates have sprayed urine, there's also a good chance that he's going to be very vocal. All the lions are going to be very vocal this evening, which is great for us, because it means that before the end of your sunset safari, you could get to feel the impression of a massive male lion roaring right next to us. Giving his face a good clean, just like your domestic cats do at home. Bonnie, that's an interesting question. Bonnie would like to know which one is my favourite lion. And I assume, can we count lionesses as well? Because that would be, I think, only fair. It's difficult to choose a favourite. I would struggle to choose a favourite out of the Birmingham boys. There's something that I really quite like about Nena, just because he's got... I don't know how to explain this. I don't quite know if I would describe it as a personality. He just seems to have a huge amount of independence, and you give him a greater area of personal space when you approach Nena. And I respect that. I respect that he's clear in his own mind exactly how comfortable he is with the vehicles. Lionesses, though, I mean, my favourite lion, I would say, it's a toss-up between Amber Eyes and that youngest Nkuhuma lioness. I've really got a soft spot for her, because when I first started working here, the youngest lioness was still a sub-adult. She was a tiny little thing, and I had such an extraordinary sighting with her and her sister as they were playing in a drainage line on Arathusa. They were bouncing up and down in the sand and pouncing on each other. And of course, after that, it was really very sad, because after that the Birmingham boys came in and they actually killed her. Or her sister, obviously. And I've had a soft spot for her since then, especially watching the way in which the Nkuhumas had to kind of recover and regroup. And if I remember correctly, she was one of the first lionesses to start mating with the Birmingham boys once they established themselves. I think I'm going to risk some shuffling around, just so that we can get a view of his face. But the paw licking, and we saw a yawn there earlier, it's a good sign. Might just mean that our male lion is going to take us on a bit of a wander. Hopefully with this roof on, not through anything too thick. Our cedar point, speaking of this lion of course is Mfumo, another big yawn. He really is thinking about getting up. Cedar Point, you want to know if perhaps Mfumo is patrolling. I think that's absolutely what he was doing this morning, and I think he's going to continue to do so this evening as well. As we often mention in weather like this, that tends to encourage big cats to both call and scent mark, just because obviously they know that their smell will have been largely washed away from the areas that they've just marked. So they might go out and start to remark their territories. He's also got quite a full belly. I don't know where he's been, but wherever he's been, he hasn't been hungry. This morning his belly was sticking out about, I would say, a good half a meter above his hip bones. It's gone down a little bit. That sheer speed of lion digestion is astounding. But he's definitely had a good meal or two. Oh, shame boy. Looking a bit scruffy after all of that rain. Making sure he gets all of the bits of mud and sand that will have splashed up onto him while he's been lying here. I'm not going to reposition actually. I'm going to give him the choice as to which way he's going to lead us once he's finished his bath. If I had to guess as to what's going to happen now, I think we're going to get a few very soft contact calls from him once he's finished this process, almost like warm-up roars. Then he'll stop and he'll listen. The other Birmingham boys, I'm not sure where all of them are. I know there's one on Simbambili with the Nkuhumas, and I know that there's one on Buffelshoek. I'm not sure where the fourth one is. But he'll be looking to locate them and warn off any other potential rival males. Oh, I see. Sorry, Nancy. It took me a second to hear what Kirsty was saying to me. But Nancy said it looks like he's walked through a cloud of glitter. All the water and the moisture that's gathered on him after the rain is causing a very sparkly effect. Now, I'm not sure how male lions feel about glitter. I would say, I guess, relatively indifferent. But imagine actually actively covering a male lion in glitter. Be hilarious. And probably a bit mean, but it does look like that. Look at that. Thanks for pointing that out, Nancy. I have to confess I didn't even notice. I was so busy wondering about what he's going to do. See? Who needs glitter out here, or jewels, or diamonds, or any shiny things, when nature does it for you? He is sparkling. And hello to Daniel in Scotland once again. Daniel, is he within roaring distance? Yes, I would say he is within roaring distance of the Djuma Dam camera. There's a good chance he might go in that direction. And the reason I say that is because I actually heard him this morning and we live very, very close to that particular camera. So I heard him roaring this morning, which there's a possibility that he's going to be audible from here. But bear in mind there's also a dam camera up at Arathusa, which would be much, much closer, and you'd have a much better chance of hearing him over that camera as well. And he's much closer to the Arathusa dam camera. Just going to add a little bit of extra light for us. He's done with us. Giving us the back of his head. If you flop down now, mister, and go back to sleep, I'm going to be very disappointed. You've done such a thorough job of cleaning that it seems like a terrible waste to then go and cover yourself in dirt again. Oh, Divan, you want to know if human speech carries far in the bush? Depends on if there's a party or not, I guess. Generally speaking, when we're out walking in the bush, we're usually speaking in relatively soft voices, and we don't often shout to each other. If we are trying to speak to each other, or attract each other's attention, we usually whistle. So it's just a more natural sounding sound. It's either bird calls or the good, the bad, and the ugly, if it's between James and Herbie. But a normal speech pattern, yes, I guess you'd hear it over a distance of about 500 meters or so, depending on if you're uphill, downhill, where you are exactly. Do you know what sounds interesting, speaking of human speech, and just because I've been thinking about it recently? I worked in a reserve where brown hyenas were the dominant predator. I wasn't there for very long, but that was the dominant predator in that area, that and leopards, which we hardly ever saw. And they're a lot more vocal in areas where there's not many spotted hyena. And to me, the sound that the brown hyenas made was like people having a party really far away. It was like the murmuring of voices. It was actually quite a special sound, also a little bit eerie, because where I was staying on that reserve, I was really, really far from anybody else. So in a way, it got a little bit creepy at times, especially when I was on my own. But it is an interesting sound. A lion's roar, on the other hand, is built to cover distance. Here we go. There we go. Some soft contact calls. A warm-up, essentially, before the main show. Come on, boy. I know what you're capable of. Let's show everybody else. I'll never ever forget hearing all 5 of them roaring when they first came into this area. Guys, where are you guys? The impala rut oblivious to the whole deal, despite the fact that they've just heard a lion contact calling. The male's not to be deterred. Now, Mfumo. Oh, you can't just end it at that, boy. Never fear, everybody. I'm pretty certain he's going to continue. Just maybe not immediately. And I would definitely, as Daniel suggested, watch the dam cameras. Rebecca, you want to know how often the boys get back together. You know, I guess in a way we don't really know. Oh, sorry. Listening for a response. Frozen in time. What on earth was I talking about? Just want to see what he's seen. Might just be that he's heard responses. Oh yes, so he's going to be probably aiming to reunite with members of his coalition. No, not that way. Not that way, that way. Yes, there's a good boy. Rebecca, as I said, we don't really necessarily always know, because most of the time those reunions happen at night. I'm pretty sure that they will get back together about once a week or so. But we can't always tell from the tracks if they've come together or if they've arrived or walked in the same place. Oh, he's roaring. He was about to. I can't see. Oh, he can't find it. Don't go, boy. I'm hoping he's going to go on the road. It's wet. I think he is more likely to. There he is. Got him. Still just half-hearted contact calls. Here we go. Christina, just you wait. You'll see how loud it sounds when he lets loose. Oh, he looks so scruffy. Doesn't he? I think he's going to roar for us, Christina. I have faith. And then you'll have a chance to hear it. Since this is a recently discovered fact, or at least recent for me, a lion's roar is 110 or so decibels at 1 meter. He's walking very stiffly. What have you smelled, boy? What's here? He's smelling something here. I wonder what it is. It could be scent markings of another lion. They often scent mark on guarri bushes, and the smell might linger for a nose as sensitive as his. Could also be a leopard marking. I don't want to reposition just yet. I have a feeling he's going to come walk past us. Oh, Fleming grimace behind the bush. That wonderful snarly face that animals pull when they are... Yes, I noticed. I'm sorry. I don't want to start up the engine now, though, because he's just going to move away if I do. He's very, very close. There we go. There we go. The partial Fleming grimace. So that is him tasting the smell, essentially. There we go. Feel it vibrating in your chest when they call like that. I'm sorry he's behind a tree, but if I'd started up my engine there, it kind of would have ruined it. So we had to take what we got there. Right, where are we planning on going? East, apparently. Okay, there's a road just here that I'm going to take rather than trying to off-road with this roof. I still think that he's going to be moving on a road. Oh, while we catch up with our male lion and hopefully get you at least one more roar, let's head back over to...
Well, that is the most incredible sound in the world, and in fact, even here, we could hear it coming, resonating in the tent. So, for those of you that were wondering whether it would be on the dam cam, I'm sure if we heard it here in the tent, you might have heard it very faintly off the dam cam as well. It's an amazing, amazing sound, and when you are right there and they are roaring towards you, it almost cuts through your bones, and it is one of those sounds that you'll never ever forget. So, I'm very, very envious of Jamie, and I'm glad for her since she braved the elements this afternoon and was able to find that. Now, I was saying earlier that the tent does get quite cold, so I've been getting cold ears, and I wanted to sort of think about things that I could use to warm them, and I found these 2 shells, and I thought maybe we could try and see if they'll fit on my ears and whether or not they would make good insulators. So I'm going to try and see. I have this funny feeling that I might look like Spock from Star Wars, but let's try and see how this works. I don't know if it's going to work. Craig, do you think this is going to work?
Possibly.
Kirst, you say Djuma's latest fashion. Well, I can tell you one thing. I sound like I'm in a tin can already, just my own hearing. Oh, they're not staying, Kirst. Hold on, let's try the other one first. I feel like this one might have a better shape for my ear. The earpiece is going to be, of course, a whole... You think this one's better, Kirst? There we go. What do we think? It brings out my eye color, Kirst. I agree. Don't they look good? Very good. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get the other one on. Let's try and see if we can do this. This will be quite entertaining if it does stay. Oh no, it's not staying. This is not working. This shell is not the good one. We need to find another one, Craig, because this one's not working. Okay, well, I'll have to hold them like this. It is quite a strange feeling to have them on, but do we think it works? So there we go, we're just messing around. They do actually insulate the ears a little bit. It feels like I've got no breeze around the ears, but I also can't hear a thing, and especially I can't hear Kirsty, so that's not an ideal situation. So there we go. That's going to be the new Djuma fashion trend. Now, earlier there was a few questions regarding Sindile, and so since we were doing leopards, I thought that we would just address Sindile. Now, Lionheart, you were wondering where he's roaming. Lionheart, I'm not sure. So the last update I got from, or anybody, of seeing Sindile was one of the Elephant Plains guys. They saw Sindile just after I started at Safari Live. So that would be about, I would say probably about 8 weeks ago. They saw him, and he was on Elephant Plains, just close to the Arathusa cut line, and moving around in that area. Since then, I believe there's been a sighting of him at Sabi Sabi. So he's moving around massive distances, and I haven't heard anything since about, I'd say Sabi Sabi was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and since then I don't know anything about him or haven't heard anything. He might have distributed into Kruger. It really is very difficult. He's also not the most relaxed individual anymore after the darting and the taking off of the collar. So for those of you who don't know who Sindile is, he was one of Shadow's cubs. Now Shadow is one of the daughters of Karula that we were talking about earlier, and her territory is very close to where Jamie is with the lion at the moment. And she had this young male leopard who was about a year old when he unfortunately attacked and killed a rabid dog, and he managed to contract rabies, and so he had to go under a series of sort of process of getting him right again and treatments, and he was fitted with a collar, and so unfortunately they had to do a few dartings, and that darting process made him a little bit more skittish and a bit more wary of vehicles, and so he's not the easiest animal to keep track of because of the amount that he moves around. So there we go, that's the updates. Now I don't think there's any other leopards that I can update you on at this stage. Those are all of them that I can think of. Now I did want to also show a map quickly, because I was talking earlier about the Masai Mara and the fact that we might go there with the crocodiles and all of that. And I know Penny Pine, you were asking whether or not it's close to Lake Victoria or Mount Kilimanjaro. So I'm going to show you on a map just so you can get a sort of reference of where we are in Kenya and how it's going to work and how far those two are from where we are. So if we have a look on the screen here, we are all the way down in the Greater Kruger National Park in the Sabi Sands. So there is Djuma. Djuma is over there. There's the waterhole for Djuma. Let me go in for you, Craig. There we go. So, in fact, sorry, I lied. That is actually Arathusa's waterhole. Djuma is a little bit off to the right here. Now, if we start going out, we're going to go out. There we go. That's the Kruger National Park, the Manyeleti. We're still going out. We're now coming up to Zimbabwe, Zambia, and this is the route that Steph drove the other day. So he went all this way up Botswana, and he cut in here, and he's gone up through Zambia, through Malawi, into Tanzania, and then eventually up into Kenya. So Steph's had a very long drive. I think he's almost in Kenya now. It's been a good few days. But where we are in Kenya is there at Ngama Mara Lodge. So we're in the Mara Triangle, which is this little section. And Lake Victoria, as you can see, is just off to the side here. So it's not too far. It's not exactly close either. That drive there will probably take you a good 4 or 5 hours to get there, maybe more, because the road network there is not very good and it's not going to be very pleasant at all. And then if I show you where Mount Kilimanjaro is, you can see Kilimanjaro is a little bit further to the east, so you've got to go past sort of Lake Natron and along towards that area there and into Tanzania. So you can see they're not very close at all, and I'm not sure if some of the crew are going to end up going to those places. They should really try and visit them. Both Lake Victoria and Mount Kilimanjaro are spectacular sites. So that is where we will be, and hopefully it will be spectacular. I'm sure it will be. Brent Leo Smith actually flew there this afternoon and is our intrepid explorer who's going to set up everything, and we'll start broadcasting for the TV show. So it's something to look forward to, and I'm sure it's going to bring us many incredible sightings in the months and years to come. Right, Byron is out. He's looking around. I wonder if he's had any more luck or been able to at least match the performance that Jamie has put on this afternoon.
We have, look, a little chameleon. I was actually wondering if we would find a chameleon after all this rain, but there's no reason why they wouldn't be out and active, maybe trying to catch a few insects, hopefully after all this rainfall that we've had. Look at that. There is a chameleon on that tree. You can see his beautiful prehensile tail at the back, and his head is just behind those leaves. But you can see it's clearly a beautiful flap neck chameleon. There we go. I haven't lost my touch just yet. It's always nice to see these beautiful little creatures at night. It's amazing how they sit dead still on the tips of the branches, and then they probably get more active during the day. They'll move around, try and catch insects. Lovely, very nice view. Now I was just thinking that that with all this rainfall now that we've had, we might get some nocturnal. I don't know why I haven't seen a scrubby recently. I don't know if any of the others have. I'm sure they have. I haven't seen one for a while, about 2 days. Now Jamie's still with that beautiful male lion. Let's see what he is up to.
He is playing tricks on me, is what he was up to. Never underestimates a male lion or any lion's ability to decide to lie down at any point in time. He looked for all the world as though he was going across to the road a little bit further to the east of us. What he actually did was came and lay down about 5 meters away from where we saw him walking. Oh, shame, that eye is so sore. I'm making sure not to shine my spotlight anywhere near it, because I suspect that although they do have the reflective layers, they've got different types of... Oh, he's going to call. Oh, sweet. How awesome is that? Now listen, listening carefully. Is there a response? Did they hear me? Will they call back? The greatest composer in the world cannot match the crescendo of a lion's roar. That build-up. Hey. Here we go. This time, not behind a bush. Thanks, Mfumo. Cedar, the feeling is absolutely indescribable, what it feels like to have a roaring lion next to you. I mean, Seb?
Amazing. I have no words. It's just, that gives you goosebumps.
It does. You get goosebumps right up on the back of your neck. I could feel it vibrating through the vehicle's pedals, and I can feel it vibrating in my chest. And whenever I've had guests that have been lucky enough to experience this, one of the things that I sometimes try and get them to do, obviously you watch the lion first, because it's awesome to see. But if you get a lion roaring more than once, I try and get everybody to just close their eyes and just feel it. It is primal, I guess, is probably the only description that I could... I don't think there's an adjective in the world that can fully describe it. And I guess every person experiences it slightly differently. Whether in a way there's fear or awe. Respect as well. Yes. He looked at me as if to say yes, and so you should. Ah, Tesla, it's lovely to hear your name again. Tesla's a regular viewer of ours, and she's 6 years old. Tesla, you want to know if the lion is roaring to scare us? No, he's not. Luckily, he's actually quite comfortable with us being here. He doesn't want to try and scare us away. What he's doing is he's doing one of two things. One, he's roaring to scare other strangers away, so strange male lions that he doesn't want to come into his territory. And he's also roaring to say, hey guys, I'm here, because remember, he's actually not alone out here. He's got 3 buddies, 3 friends, brothers and cousins, that he controls this territory with, and he wants to know where they are. So he's looking for them, and by roaring, he's saying, guys, I'm over here, where are you? And then across wherever the other lions are, they'll go, we're here, or we're here. You know, something not quite so high-pitched, in such a girly voice. So they're talking to each other, Tesla. That's what they're doing. But they just have to do it very, very, very loudly. You can see his eyes affected as well. It's not just the skin around it. You can see how it's watering. Ellen, talking about contact calls and roaring to notify other male lions, you want to know if there's... Oh, she can see his eyes watering really badly. You want to know if there's different roars for different purposes. And the answer to that is probably yes, although I think it's very difficult for a human ear to distinguish the subtleties of such a thing. I think one generic big roar could serve both purposes, both to call to the other males and to warn off. See the fresh wounds above his eye and on his nose. Always covered in scratches, mister. Aren't you? But what we do know about lions roaring is that each one is a voice. Each one has an individual voice that other male lions or other lions will recognize. And that's been proved time and time again with experiments with playing lion roars. And the difference in approaches and the difference in responses, particularly with territorial males. I'll take a nap now. That roaring really takes it out of you, man. Lions often roar lying down, by the way, for our newer viewers. It helps sound to together. I think Mfumo's torn now between... While he makes up and see biceps Aaron has been up to with his spotlight.
I'm so jealous that you actually got to hear a lion roaring like that again. I haven't heard that for quite a while, and as some of you may know, it's my absolute favorite sound in the bush. It really, really is amazing while I eat all these insects. See, so there are insects coming out now. As I said, after the rain, probably get a bit of activity from insects. Is that another chameleon? I think it is. Oh, look at that. There it is. Oh, a better view of one. There we go. They can't hide. Nice view of a chameleon. Look at that. And how is that for multitasking? Talking to the camera, driving, shining a spotlight. I'm going to give myself 5 points. Nice view of another flapneck chameleon. I'm actually looking for cats though. That's what I am looking for. Even though Jamie's got that beautiful male lion, I'd love to bump into a leopard walking along the road. Maybe we should save that for tomorrow morning perhaps. Oh, we've got a nice long morning drive. Find a beautiful male leopard perhaps walking through Djuma. That would be lovely. Thankfully the rain has stopped. It does still look very cloudy. I can't see any stars or anything, so it is still cloudy. But it's been wonderful rain. Very, very welcome. I haven't seen too many bush babies recently either. Don't think they would like the rain very much, although they'll probably get a lot of moisture from it, from the leaves, drink some of the water. Another chameleon. Is it? Let's just see there. Is that Senzo? Another one there. There we go. Is that 3 for tonight? There's another one. You see there? And it's holding on. Awesome. That's a nice view of that one. Huh. Kirsten is saying, am I sure it's not just the same one and I've just been doing loops? Nice one, Kirsten, but no, it's not. 3 different chameleons. If you notice, they've all got different name badges on, so you can tell they're different. Oh dear. See what happens when you're out in the bush for too long. You don't see too much. I really enjoyed all those elephant that we saw today. We had some wonderful elephant sightings. Especially sitting with that big bull that we had earlier today. That herd was following him, definitely. I mean, the way he was breaking branches is definitely providing food for the rest of the herd. Which is interesting, because there's so much food around at the moment. There's no reason for them to want those top branches of marula trees specifically. But maybe it's just, I'm not sure why they went for it, or why he chose to break the top branches. I'm sure they are very, very tasty. But it's interesting behavior. Nice to see that. But he was a magnificent bull. Nice to get so close to him too. He walked right past us. Luckily, not too phased. I've been quite fortunate. All the elephant have been very, very relaxed towards me in this area. B. Snufkin, that's an interesting name. You want to know, why don't we ever see chameleons in pairs? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think, to be honest, if they do end up mating, they probably do it during the day. I don't think they would do it at night. At night, they are quite vulnerable, so they don't want to draw too much attention to themselves. So they would probably choose to do it during the day. There's another little one over here. There's another flapneck chameleon. There it is. Look at that. There we go. That's a nice view of it. Look at those eyes. That's 4. Yeah, come on. I feel a record coming on. So I'm not sure why they're not in pairs. My guessing would be that if they do decide to mate, they probably mate during the day and they choose not to draw too much attention to themselves at night, and hence why they sit on the tips of branches to try and blend in with the leaves, camouflage, and wait until the day where they start getting active again, or more active. But look at that chameleon, still very aware of what's going on around it, with those beautiful eyes. I'm going to take the light off of him. Those eyes that are able to move independently and see a full 360-degree view of what is around them. So that's amazing. That really is. I think it's called. What did we say? It was what was it? Oh, I've hit a complete blank. It was panoramic view. Panoramic view. Being able to see everything that is around them and a clear picture of it too, which is amazing. Also, again, how do people work it out? How do they? I don't know. Scientists. What do I know? I'm just a guide. Right. Well, I wonder if that male lion is going to roar for Jamie again. Let's go see.
He thought about it. He definitely thought about roaring once again. I can't believe Byron has found 3 chameleons. That's incredible. That is really, truly impressive. I think that Byron has essentially become the king of chameleons out here. I think he must have spotted more than any of us at this point. But moving on from our chameleons to our really, truly exhausted lion. 2 roars and 1 half-hearted one. And he appears to be done. Come on, boy. We've got 15 minutes left. Or less than that, actually, probably. I'm not quite sure how much longer we've got left. Either way, I think that's plenty of time for one more good demonstration of your vocal ability. What we need now is for one of the other Birmingham males to respond. Sorry, cursed. Game Drive comms went off at the same time. Laura, yes, absolutely. Laura, I completely believe his eye is going to heal up. Laura, I don't know if you were watching a couple of months ago when Mfumo first had that abscess on his face. He had an abscess on his right cheekbone that turned into a giant seeping infected abscess that was filled with maggots. It was absolutely awful. And I was actually a little bit concerned because of its proximity to all kinds of important things like eyes and sinus cavities, and he recovered from it. So I absolutely think he probably still has a lingering secondary infection there, making him quite uncomfortable. I think it's sore, but you would not believe the resilience of these creatures. You really wouldn't. They are so phenomenally capable of healing themselves. There's no antibiotics out here. He can't drop past the drugstore and go and get himself a general course of amoxicillin or something like that. He just has to sit it out, essentially, and that's what he's going to do. I think he'll be fine, though. Look, sometimes it takes a while. This injury is about 2 months now. 2 months old, maybe even 3 months old. I lose track of time out here, as lots of you will know. It was so close to the eyeball itself. When it first happened, it was really quite serious. But it has healed enormously. And as for those other little nicks and scratches, well, that's just all part and parcel of being a male lion. But you can see by the way that he's blinking that it's uncomfortable for him. Also, that he's kind of thinking about going back to sleep. This is the equivalent, this is the lion equivalent of when you wake up to your alarm and put it on snooze and go, 5 more minutes. Just a few more minutes. Don't quite feel like getting up just yet. Everyone always thinks of male lions as lazy, but he has an enormous amount of distance to cover as a territorial male. Well, since he isn't planning on calling just yet, although Murphy's Law we might just, let's pop back quickly to Tristan in the tent.
Well, hopefully he will call again because, like we've been saying, it is the most incredible sound. But luckily we've had really good sighting of Mfumo this evening, and I'm very jealous of Jamie. I don't think I can actually remember the last time I had a male lion on Safari Live, so it's been a while for me, and definitely I've not heard one calling in a very long time, which would be nice to maybe try and find him tomorrow. Now, earlier I was talking about Sindile and the rabid dog incident, and as many of you have stated, he did not actually in fact kill the dog, so I do apologize about that. He was attacking the dog and he got chased off it, and then people killed the dog. So that's how it happened, but he inevitably would have killed the dog had nobody chased him off it in the first place. So that's how it all works, but there we go. Now, I wanted to just have a look because I've gotten a little bit of FOMO. So for those of you who don't know what FOMO is, it's fear of missing out, and I don't like to be in the tent cooped up in here without seeing any sort of spots. And so I was looking at my dead dung beetle and analyzing its face, and I found that its eye actually looks like that of a leopard's coat, which makes me quite happy, generally, because anything to do with leopards is always a fun time. And so you can see under my microscope, there we go. So there's its eye, that little round circle in the middle. Now I would try and point it out, but being that it is a hollow dung beetle head, every time there is a breath of wind it seems to bob its head as though it's listening to music, and so if I try and poke it, I'm sure I'm going to make a mistake, but let's try anyway. So there we go. There's its eye that we're talking about, and you can see, look at the detail on that eye. Isn't that eye beautiful? So it's got that orange coloration with those little black spots all over it, and makes it then look exactly like a leopard's coat almost. And I wonder, I was interested to know, and I'll have to probably wait until next year, although after this rain we might get a few dung beetles coming out. I'm quite interested to know whether or not it's like that when the dung beetle is alive, because I've actually not looked at a dung beetle's eye under a microscope while it's alive, and I wonder if those black spots are there, or if that is just part of the sort of decaying process that these black spots do develop, or the gold coloration comes through. Now, I'm going to get back to Jamie because I believe that she is still with Mfumo, and I am hoping that he does roar because we have a speaker in the tent, so I'm getting sort of surround sound. As I turn up my speaker, I can hear him roaring as well as it coming through Jamie's microphone.
It was actually quite a resolute finishing of that particular call. There you go. He did call one more time for us. Tristan, I was about to smack you. I thought we were going to miss it. But it's okay. It's okay, we made it just in time. Yeah, you didn't miss much at all. Just the warm-up bit. How's that? What's that? 3 now. 3 proper roars that we've had. It's the wonderful thing about this weather. And winter, actually. Now, safari's going late into the darkness. We've got a far better chance of seeing the lions up and about, or at least down and roaring. Up and about would be perhaps a little bit of an over-exaggeration when it comes to Mfumo right now. You know that's much more effective if you move around, mister. Oh, who am I to tell him how to male lion? He knows what he's doing. Oh, big sigh. Anne, you say maybe his pain is making him less active. There is a grain of possibility in that. I noticed that when Mfumo had that massive cheek wound, I noticed he was quite inactive at that time. He spent a lot of time around our area. He still managed to get into fights, though, over females and with other males. If there were a reason for him to get up and move, if he heard another male lion roaring in response, if he found something or saw something that he'd want to eat, he absolutely would get up and move around. So it's not debilitating, but I think you're probably right. I think it's probably making him less inclined to get up and move. And you might even find that the cool temperatures are actually really helping him, because he's probably got a slightly elevated body temperature as well. just thanks to the infection. So having a little bit of rain and maybe even lying in the cool grass is probably quite nice. And you all know when you get something that's infected, it gets hot and swollen, and nothing quite relieves the pain as well as, barring a painkiller, actually putting something cool on it. I think that probably helps. That's one of the reasons why I think he lies quite a lot on the side. Also, we'll stop during the day at least. We'll stop flies landing on it, which is exactly what he wants to do. You can actually see the grass moving every time he breathes out. That's quite cool. Gentle puffs of breath. Well, Mr. Mfumo, you've now got 180 seconds to roar. Bonnie, you want to know why do male lions have dark brown manes? They don't always necessarily. It is a genetic thing, what color their manes will eventually turn. Generally, almost always actually in most situations, a male lion's mane will get darker with age. So as they get older, these manes will get darker. When they first arrived 2 years ago, they were basically completely blonde, and they've now started to go much, much darker. So there is an age factor. There is also a genetic factor. So the black-maned lions of the Kalahari, for example, have darker manes genetically and traditionally than the lighter-maned lions of this area. But there's been a lot of mixing in terms of genetics, particularly in some of the smaller closed systems, the private reserves. Not where we are. In this area, these lions manage their own genetics because it's such a massive area. But in certain other private reserves, which are a very important and ever-growing part of conservation out here, there's a lot of mixing and matching that happens with lion genetics. But generally speaking, age and genetics are the two biggest contributors to the color of a lion's mane. And look how different Hairy Belly and the ginger male's manes were. The two Matimba males that we used to see in this area. And Hairy Belly was called Hairy Belly because his mane extended all the way down his belly. I don't think the Birmingham boys will ever have as full a mane of hair. Mfumo, unless you roar in the next 60 seconds, that's it for the evening. This has actually been a really special time, but we are reaching the end of our sunset safari. Plenty of exciting possibilities for the sunrise safari tomorrow. Who knows, Tamba might pop out, Hosana, Shongile, the lions, the Nkuhumas might come back onto Djuma. We just never know, but that's what makes it fun. And the knowledge that the night is going to carry all sorts of mysteries. So a big thank you to Seb for his wonderful camera work. I'm glad we got you a few lion roars there, and one that was not behind a bush. And thank you to Kirsty and to Alice in Final Control. Most importantly, to all of you that have sent through your questions and your comments, or have just joined us silently on the safari. Thank you for joining us. You're what makes it so special. Have a fantastic day, everybody, or night, and I will catch up tomorrow on the Sunrise Safari.